Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to say that Kat Fletcher and David Trevor have now arrived, so we've got a full house and 3 presentations. Each of them will last about a quarter of an hour or so, and there'll be opportunity for questions when the speakers finish speaking. So without any more ado, please join me in welcoming Rachel Carruthers, who we've already said, from West Sussex Waste Prevention Team. Thank you, Rachel.
I should say that. You might not want to. Hi everyone, thanks for inviting us along this evening. We're really pleased to be here. Both myself, who started as a volunteer waste prevention advisor with West Sussex, with a scheme that was set up by the University of Brighton and the County Council. And I'm lucky enough to, well, we're lucky enough to be joined by Helen, one of our other waste prevention advisor volunteers. So she's here to sort of lend a hand with the information table and answer any questions you might have at the end. I'm going to run through a brand new presentation that has just been put together. This presentation is really aimed at cabinet members and politicians to let them know the complexities of waste management in West Sussex. But I really thought that it would be a good opportunity tonight to try it out and perhaps use you as guinea pigs, because you're quite a knowledgeable audience, and I think we'll get some good questions. And if there's any holes in it, please do let me know. I'd really appreciate the feedback. So you bear with me. I don't normally have notes with me. I do know my stuff, but they've put some new bits in there, and I just want to make sure I don't miss anything out. So this is us, West Sussex Waste. So we're going to explore all the complexities and the relationships between the County Council, contractors, district and boroughs, and what happens and where everything goes in West Sussex. So the objectives are to divert as much waste as we can from landfill into other areas. 50% recycling rate was set by the EU. It has been transposed into UK law. We're doing about 41.5, just over. New recycling rates are due out imminently. In fact, they're a bit late being released, so I don't want to think that's an omen that they've gone down. I'm fingers crossed they have still gone up. But we are doing as much as we can to get there. And treating our waste as a resource, not just as rubbish. It is a valuable resource. And following the waste hierarchy where we can. So the least favourite option is landfill, and the most desirable option for everything is to reuse and reduce our waste as much as we can. Think about those purchases we make with less packaging and so on. And ensuring that we get the best value from the contracts that we've got with our service providers to make sure that all the residents get value for money. It's great with an audience like this, and I'm sure you're all really committed recyclers and you're doing your bit to prevent waste where you can. As a county, we have to speak to all the residents, and not all of them are as up to date with what they can and can't do, and some find it harder than others. And we have to provide an efficient and effective waste collection and disposal service for everybody. So we work together in a very informal waste partnership. It's not a formal contract like some other areas are. Kent has a formal working partnership with their district and boroughs. Surrey have a slightly more formal than us, but it's still not what you would call a formal partnership. So, who collects our waste? There's all our district and boroughs. There's 7 of them, but Ada and Worthing have teamed up together to become one authority in terms of the collection. So the district and borough is legally responsible to collect all your waste, and that's how many houses they collect from. I had a feeling that Horsham and perhaps Crawley would be a bit higher, and then I realised where I live has got a higher population, so there's a lot more people in Bognor and Littlehampton than I realised. So altogether, 367,000 households that we have to collect from. And it's collected 2 ways, really. 3 of the district boroughs use their in-house service. They haven't contracted out their collection service. And 3 have. The Crawley, Mid Sussex and Arran have contracted out to private providers. So Arran is Biffa, Mid Sussex, who are your lorries? Are they Biffa or Serco or Veolia? Viridor. Okay. And this is how much they all collect. It's quite a lot. 288,000 tonnes per year. So it's quite a lot of waste. We dispose of it. All of that has to go somewhere. We also collect another 111,000 tonnes at the 11 household waste and recycling sites. So I'm guessing your nearest one is Burgess Hill? Yeah. And if anyone wants to talk about any of the changes that have happened at the household waste sites, I'm happy to take questions later. So altogether we've got to do nearly 400,000 tonnes of waste and recycling. And this is what your bins look like. Obviously the bins aren't full of a family. 59% is general rubbish, 27% recycled, and the rest is green garden waste. So the 27 and the 14 is what gives us that 41% recycling rate that we're at the moment. About 60% of what's in that general rubbish bin at the top is recyclable.
Or reusable.
Or reusable, yes. 60% is quite a big number. If we got that out of the general rubbish, it would be very easy to get to our target. Unfortunately, people still make mistakes. Or there's confusion, because we have made changes to the recycling. Each household produces that much waste every year. It has to go somewhere. This is where it all goes. Just in case there's any confusion, this image here, it's not a mobile phone, which is what I thought it was when I first saw this. It is a block of flats. Right? Just clear that up now. So there's the houses, the householders. Along comes the lorry. Hopefully it doesn't drive that fast down your road. Collects the rubbish, drops it off to the transfer station, and then there you are, the householder, going off to your household waste and recycling site, and then this is where it all goes. From the transfer stations and the waste recycling sites, gets bulked up and sent off to one of these three areas. The materials recycling facility is in Ford. Has anyone visited it? Great facility. One of the best performing in the country. The mechanical biological treatment facility is where all your general rubbish goes now. And that's Warnham. Anyone know where the brickworks, the old brickworks site is there? It's just next door to there and just in front of an existing landfill site that we use. And then we have various composting sites around the county. There's a lot of clicking on this. That's my first feedback, too much clicking. Okay, so the transfer stations are dotted around the county and there's 5 in total. You've got 2 in Mid Sussex. And then we've got 11 household waste sites, again dotted around, and 2 in Mid Sussex. We've also got 2 mobile waste recycling sites in the Chichester district, Witterings and Selsey, and they're alternate weeks. So one week it's at Witterings, the next week it's at Selsey. Then we've got compost sites, which are the green ones at Olus and Woodhorn, Board, and the plant at Warnham up the top there. So this is how it gets to the recycling facility. Run by Viridor, as are all the 11 household waste recycling sites, the transfer stations and all the vehicles. It's a 25-year contract, so we've got some stability in that service and continuity. In the factory, it separates all the recycling and produces a very high quality recycler that we sell on to the global markets. It is one of the best performing MRFs, materials recycling facilities in the UK. It's also, we're lucky enough that it can take glass in its, in our recycling at home. Hampshire, they can't put glass in, they've still got to go to the bottle bank. It has a very low contamination rate. There's about a 6% reject from this facility. So out of all the recycling that gets sent there by all 7 districts and boroughs, 6% of what goes there is rejected. And this is what happens there. It sorts out all our lovely clean, dry, loose recycling, turns it into a useful output. That's how it's broken down. Anyone surprised that we've got the plastic containers on there? You're all aware that we can do pots, tubs and trays now, plastics.
It's not clear what you can.
Yeah, I've got great examples on the table, so please do come and speak to Helen or myself and have a look at the jars, reused jars with all our different samples in. No plastic film or carrier bags, but otherwise anything that's a container, a pot, a bottle, pretty much can go in.
Interesting, because 7% seems quite low now for the amount that you're taking.
It does, but a lot of it's based on weight for recycling figures, and the plastic is very light by comparison to glass bottles and jars or textiles that go in through the household waste site. And what happens is they weigh how much general rubbish we create, they weigh how much recycling is, and that's how they get the recycling rate. So we could all be recycling loads more, but if we're putting a lot of heavy, dirty rubbish, as I call it, in a black sack, that's going to affect that recycling rate. I definitely think that needs to be looked at, how it's worked out. So we output over 75,000 tonnes of quality recycler. It's all baled up in the separate material streams and sold on to markets. Try and get, through our contract of Viridor, we try and get the best value we can. Yes?
Can I ask who does the separation? Is it done by
It's mechanical.
or
It's mechanical.
Really?
It's a factory. If you get a chance to go, do. It's a really interesting process. I'll do a quick, I love doing this. It goes in, the big thing scoops the first lot in, it goes on a conveyor belt, then into a big washing machine drum. There's no water in it, it's dry. It's called a trommel, it's huge. It's big as this room, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's certain size holes in it. One of the first things that falls through is glass, and it falls through 2 different size holes. And that'll be the reason why we ask for no small bottle tops in your plastic recycling. We don't want the milk bottle tops or anything small, like any small tops. We quite like lids that are bigger, like a coffee jar lid, but we don't want small bottle tops because they fall through with that glass. I'm sure they will come up with some mesh or something to sort that problem out, but for the moment, that's why, because it lessens the quality of the glass that we're sending to market to be recycled, reused. It goes through that trommel and then it goes on to conveyor belts. And some of it, the conveyor belt travels up, the paper falls down because it's light and it goes off to a different one. Plastics will travel along, and at the top or halfway along there's an optical sorter, so there's a mechanical eye looking down and it's set to recognise clear plastic. So it looks down, it sees a clear plastic bottle of Coke or something, it times how long it will take that bottle to get to the high-powered puffer there. It travels up, it's timed it, it shoots it off with this puff of air onto a different conveyor belt. So clear plastics go one way, coloured plastics like bleach bottles and so on go another way, and it all gets separated into the right places to be baled up. Very interesting, well worth a visit. It's only about an hour and a half and it's only at Ford. It's a really good trip out.
How much gets rejected?
Sorry?
I was going to say, if there's any like yoghurt left in a yoghurt pot, what about anything that's not been cleaned?
Really, we want all the recycling to be clean, dry and loose, so not tied up in carrier bags, and don't put yoghurt pots inside a cereal box, because that optical sorter will see cardboard, not plastic, because it's hidden inside. So that's why we say that if there is contamination, it can cope with a small amount of contamination. But if someone puts a half-used bottle of oil in there, and that's, it's a glass bottle and it breaks and that oil goes on all the paper and card, that's real contamination and it's not fit to be recycled. So the whole load will get rejected at that point. So it's really frustrating if you live in a road and everyone's doing great recycling and one householder is putting loads of food waste in there and it's just contaminating the whole dust cart. That's a swing in money terms of about, well, one dust cart can earn us taxpayers and our partners £750, £850. If that goes to landfill because it's contaminated, it could cost us that much, because there's landfill tax, which is £83 a tonne now, just gone up again, plus gate fees, plus transport costs, staff. So it's a huge swing just for one dust cart from being diverted from the factory, the recycling factory, to the MBT. So this is where all your other recycling goes, not your recycling, rubbish. It gets taken up, once it's been bulked up at the transfer stations, it goes to this new factory. I say new, it's been there quite a while, but it's only recently started taking your residual rubbish. And it's run by Biffa. Again, a long contract, you know, stability and continuity of the service, and all of the county's refuse is now going there. It is German technology, state of the art, and it can divert 75% of waste from landfill. And this is what happens there. All the metals, the ferrous and non-ferrous, are extracted by magnets or eddy currents, where they're spinning it and then they're pinging aluminium off. Quite clever to see it. It also has an anaerobic digestion facility there. There's 6 big tanks, and all your organic and compostable food waste and contaminated paper and card that can't be recycled because it's perhaps got grease on from food or whatever, gets diverted off and ends up in these tanks, generating biogas, it'll turn into electricity, we sell it back to the national grid. There'll be enough to power about 10,000 homes long term. The rest comes out of the factory as RDF, refuse derived fuel. So all those bits of plastic, the plastic film, carrier bags, and crisp packets, that type of thing, all gets compacted down and mixed up. It's really calorific, it burns very well in incinerators, generating energy. So I'm sure you've all seen the big incinerator at New Haven, that type of facility. That's where it will go. That contract is being procured at the moment, so fingers crossed we have a contractor in place very, very soon, and then all of that will be diverted.
That would be like physically close to this facility,
Well, we haven't got plans to build an energy from waste plant in West Sussex. We've tendered the contract out to existing providers, so it could, I don't know if it could end up at New Haven or elsewhere, Surrey or perhaps South London, I don't know. There's a few dotted around. There's a big one at Heathrow as well, isn't there?
There's one in Oxford too.
Yeah, yeah. So there's quite a few around. After all of those bits have been taken out of our general waste, there's about 25% left, which still unfortunately is going to end up in landfill. I'm just going to put all these up. It's quite good to talk about this, because the first time we've actually said to people, what would happen if we do increase recycling? What are the impacts on us as residents, us as a county council, Mid-Sussex district, in how we provide the service to get, to deal with that increased recycling? It's great, it'll increase our satisfaction that we're doing the right thing. But if we all flood the market with lots of recyclable materials, the value that, the money we get for each product could go down. So we could actually lose money even though we're recycling more. I'm not saying that would happen, but it could happen. Have we got enough capacity at all these facilities to deal with the extra recycling? How much would it cost to communicate to residents about any changes or increased service in recycling? Have we got enough dust carts? Is there enough, vehicle space at each of the 5 waste transfer stations for more dust carts to come in and out with another load of recycling? Lots of things to consider. So although for me it's key to get that recycling rate up, there's a lot going on in the background to make sure that we are able to cope with the effects of that. I haven't mentioned actually, you know, we've got Brexit, we've had Brexit. Will the government insist that we stick to the 2020 target of 50%, and then we've got a higher target set for 2030? And then we've got these other factors to consider. The number of households. I don't know what house building's been like around this area, but I mean, Horsham district is just gone. They're building houses everywhere. I mean, literally, they're like whole new towns, aren't they? What do we do about that? Because we've got to make sure that we get more involved at the planning stages to ensure the roads are wide enough for the dust cart to go down, which has proved a problem at a lot of new builds. They've made the roads narrower to get more houses in, but it means that you can't get a dust cart down the road. You've got residents dragging bins for miles to try and, you know, get their waste and recycling collected. Making sure that if it is, you know, blocks of flats or shared accommodation, shared housing, that they've got proper bin stores that are covered and secure, that general public can't just chuck their chip bag in the recycling bin, causing that contamination. Again, will we make more money from the recycling that we sell on? Will we make less if we flood the market with more people, more recycling? Increased vehicle movements, more CO2. Not what we want. So there's a lot of work that has to happen behind the scenes to make sure all the infrastructure is right, that we've got all the, you know, the buildings and the vehicles to cope with extra households, and what it all costs us. You know, we're all taxpayers. Any questions? Yes.
I mean, this can't really go on like this, can it? I mean, surely there's got to be some kind of stopping the packaging at source. Do you guys put any pressure on supermarkets, food producers, etc., to actually start, you know, reusing things more and cutting down on packaging?
They have done a lot. There's something called the Courtauld Agreement, which a lot of big companies have signed up to, you know, right across the EU, to reduce their packaging by certain percentages at, you know, I think it's at 5-year intervals. There has been a lot of work, but you're right, there can be a lot more done. But I think us as consumers are the ones that should be putting more pressure on.
How do we do that?
I'll tell you how I do it, and this is that I'm now speaking as a resident, not as a council officer, just for this bit. If I buy something in, say, Tesco's or Lidl's or Sainsbury's, there are other supermarkets available, and it's got a lot of unnecessary packaging. I do.
Well, you do it in the till, do you?
And I do it at the till, and I think the more of us that do that, it becomes more of an issue for each store. The store managers will feed back to head office, and they'll have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But they have done lots of things. I mean, you've probably noticed that a lot of packaging has become thinner and lighter, so they have reduced the content. So whereas, say, I'm thinking like a Quality Street tin used to be a tin, it's now a plastic tub. That plastic has got a little bit thinner. It's not good, is it? Not at all. But I think it's down to us as consumers a lot of the time. The government do.
You're letting the producers off the hook, though, aren't you?
Well,
That's the
no,
trouble,
because I think they have signed up to the Courtauld Agreement, but they can do more, can't they?
Yeah, because there's a lot of talk.
Yeah.
Possibly a bit too much talk and not enough action.
A lot of tick box exercises, but not action. But I think the more of us that make it an issue for supermarkets rather than governments to deal with, they want our money. You know, we are consumers, we're buyers of their products. Let them know what we want from them. And I do think they laugh at me in the supermarket, but they, you know, it's going to become an issue if there's 10 out of 20 checkouts and we're all leaving packaging there. They're going to have to do something, aren't they?
Yeah, well, no,
I
commend you on doing that, definitely. But one does have to wonder, is the whole system kind of ultimately flawed? And, you know, this practice of driving all our food around the country and having to over-package it, you know, needs to be. But that's a different...
But can I do a quick straw poll? Who home composts? Great audience here. As said, committed recyclers, great waste prevention people. But there's a lot of people that say, oh, I can't home compost, it's too much, it's dirty, it's smelly. You know, I've got 3 compost bins. I've got hot composters, I've got green cone, green Johanna, normal compost bin. I'm doing what I can. But for someone living on the 4th floor of a block of flats, it's a struggle to just get their recycling downstairs, let alone do it, get a community composting thing going.
You mentioned that electricity is generated from waste,
Yeah.
which is great, but about 25% still go into landfill. And in Sweden, none goes to landfill because they've got these centres of combustion.
Yeah.
And there's very little pollution from them, but it's all used to generate electricity, some sort of combustion process.
think-
So are you looking into that, or perhaps
They actually
liaising
buy
with
waste
these
from us.
countries?
Yeah.
They buy waste from us because they've over.
They do.
They've over capacity.
Yeah.
And there's
Because Sweden, what they did is they did a national plan. So they built the energy from waste plants. They're right across the country. But now they don't produce enough waste to feed those energy from waste plants. And this is how I feel about the separate food waste collections as well, I have to say. Everyone always asks me at an event, why don't you have separate food waste collections? And they're great to start with, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, Kat, but they're great. If you have your kitchen caddy and you fill it up with your food waste and off it goes to be anaerobically digested or community composted or whatever. But there comes a point when the ordinary resident who's maybe on a lower income is putting the same pack of ham in that compost bin every week. It's not going to take even the most uneducated person to realise that they don't need to buy that anymore. So it's great, we've prevented the food waste, which is the key thing, prevent the waste in the first place. But then you've paid out for all the infrastructure. It would cost about £1 million per district to change the vehicles, to accommodate separate food waste collection, never mind caddies, liners, etc. And then after 2 years, 3 years, we've all realised that we're putting too much money in that compost, the kitchen caddy. We stop buying those products. But then all that money we've paid out as taxpayers to do that separate food waste service then is not giving us the money back.
So is that what you think about the system in Sweden, that we don't want to introduce something like that?
Well, they're importing our waste,
So that's
not
what
just
we're
West
doing
Sussex,
on
they're
our
importing waste from
Cross
across.
send it to Sweden to do that.
And Denmark are importing as well, I think, aren't they? Because they went the same route.
And Germany import RDF. So, I talk about it in my talk, but one of the problems in over-investing at the bottom of the waste hierarchy is that you end up unintentionally creating demand for waste, which you're ideologically saying that you don't want to create in the first place, right? So there's lots of tensions and conflict there, which is why as citizens or individuals, it's probably better to focus at the top of the waste hierarchy, which involves buying less new stuff. The stuff you do buy, you make sure it's recyclable. The stuff you do have, you make sure it gets reused. And actually don't focus too much on recycling.
Yeah.
To be really honest with you, would be my take. Local authorities are forced in a way to completely highlight and
Chase the
emphasise
target.
recycling.
Yeah.
But as individuals, it's probably just best to focus on what you can do rather than taking on.
The evening drawing on,
Yeah.
and wondering whether we should draw a line here, if that's okay. If anyone's got an urgent question, we could surely pick that up again. Okay.
Because I've blast through my talk and it really connects up.
Yeah.
And,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we just say thank you to
Pleasure.
the